hey, fuck off, cancel something like a small thing like that breaks the ice. Going to some of these fancy gyms have worked out pretty well for them.
And I am actually shifting gyms next month. It is also important to now discuss about cringe. I can relate back to the first time I started posting on LinkedIn, and it was not a very nice feeling. The reason I wanted to catch up with you, Newan, is I heard your talk at Spike, and it was quite an eye opener for me specifically because I have a set of beliefs about how I function as a person, and I see myself more as a, seated behind a desk, doing a lot of research, doing marketing work, advising clients. When it comes to networking, when it comes to making friends, as you say, I don't believe that it's my strong suit. So either these beliefs are limiting how I function, or I genuinely am bad at it. I don't know yet. But listening to this, step by step, this gentle guide you gave us at Spike, I thought maybe, this is something I need to be good at if I am going to call myself a businessman, because you need these skills, right? So that was my kind of reasoning for wanting to have this chat with you. That being said, I'm not a podcast host in a traditional sense. So this is going to be, I'm going to be pulling stuff out of my ass, and you're going to right engage in that conversation, and we will see how it goes. Wonderful. Right. So you run two companies in the tech space, if I understood you correctly the other day.
One in the technology services space and one in the
You
technology product space.
right. Can you explain a little bit more as to what these two things mean?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here and have a chat with you. I've admired your work for some time, so it's great to be here. So essentially, the usual founder journey in Sri Lanka is that everyone knows if you are in technology, building products is the best way to go about it. Having your own idea, having like one focused product. But the usual Sri Lankan founder journey is that the available capital as for startup investments is pretty low here. You can't take such bets to build something scratch from ground zero with no capital. So what they do is they go for the most easiest thing that they can start with a zero capital investment, which is a services business, because you simply can start with like simply zero. Like that is how I started many. So the first thing I started in that same founder journey that we have to follow, unfortunately, is the services route. So I started a technology services company, provide resources, provide our technology talent and our kind of knowledge to other organizations worldwide. And then building that for 5 years, I have captured that kind of the required knowledge, skills, and also the investment that required for me to sustain and build a product. So that is where I went ahead and started our own initial like idea, like a software product that is just one singular. It can be SaaS, it can be anything that we put our focus on to take to the global market. So it's like an offering in terms of like one specific platform or a product.
Okay, wonderful. And how long have you been in these two businesses?
So I actually started the first business right after my school. So now it has been almost 5 years. So this is
Okay.
the fifth year that we are kind of approaching. And the product business we just launched early this year. So it's actually less than 6 months.
Okay.
So pretty excited about that.
All right. That's good to hear. All the best with that. So tell me, how has networking benefited your business? I know there are direct benefits in terms of acquiring new clients, but we spoke the other day about the indirect benefits as well. Can you tell me a little about that?
Yeah, I think for me, networking has been like I would say, the key driving force behind everything from not only business, but being a better person itself. That has been a tool that unlocks so many different opportunities for both business and personal, like I said. I think from a business perspective, like you said, yes, networking has its the direct outcomes that you would expect it to have, which is like the ROI on a kind of a financial basis, where you convert customers, you speak to them, and you get a business converted, which is a good thing. But I believe there's so much things that goes beyond that specific financial transactions that add a lot of value to you from networking. One such is essentially how I approach networking is like not to sell. That's why I said that. They also like networking towards like or a sales is you never sell, because there's so many other things that you can get from it. So a lot of things around my business in terms of what are the mistakes that I should avoid, what are the changes that I need to do in my business, like what are the how I should process certain things, and what are the procedures that I should follow. So a lot of learnings on how to build a business came from networking, because like I said, I started the business the very next day my advanced level exam finished. So like literally my knowledge about business is zero, and I have zero corporate knowledge as well in terms of how an office operates. So I learned through stories, I learned through talking to people, and the method to unlock is networking. So I spoke to so many people in so many industries, learn how they operate, and that helped me indirectly close deals. Example is that you speak to one person and then they can convert. But in services, one of the key things is that you work with so many different industries. Like it can be hospitality, it can be like food and beverage, so many different industries. So I didn't limit myself to speaking to only tech entrepreneurs, like saying, oh, here I only speak to people who are in the software business. I went ahead and partnered and, like in the sense, spoke to, connected with so many people in like different industries, and that's some like it might not be relevant for me at that point, but some of those insights that they shared eventually indirectly helped me close some of the deals that were coming through from other customers, because when they mentioned something in their industry, I was able to ask the right questions. I was able to say, hey, yeah, I know this, like I've spoken to a few people in the industry, and that automatically builds some trust with those other partners who I've never even spoken to, but I have that industry knowledge insight just by speaking to someone in that industry and connected with them and network with them. So that is like one very important direct indirect thing, how business can operate and kind of improve. And on a personal level itself, like you said, I mean, I started the business when I couldn't properly even speak in English, like talking to people, kind of like those people are like they create a safe space for you to kind of talk to and make mistakes, because the people who have achieved something and know something in their life, they know that this is where they also started with, so they are open for it. So that allowed me to kind of improve my speaking ability again, which indirectly helps you close deals, go to boardrooms and speak confidently. Like there are small things that like compounds in networking that really helps you overall in everything that you do. This is just like my personal, not belief per se, but like my experience, like what has worked for me.
There's one key difference between how I usually approach this networking concept versus this philosophy just you just prescribed. The main difference for me is when I walk into one of these events, it's always I have this one single thought in my head. I want to find people who might benefit me in a very commercial sense, and I want to make a good first impression and make sure that they understand my service or my business in a way that I can gain from it in future. But beyond that, I don't really think of making a stable connection or asking for advice. What I'm hearing, from what you just said is that you need to be a little more curious when you walk into these spaces. Go in with an open mind and go in with the mindset that this is an opportunity for you to learn and acquire knowledge, not necessarily to push something at the audience or the people you're talking to. Did I catch that right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And Yes, you touched on some of the ways that it has benefited your company. Are there any examples that you could give me?
Yeah, I think I can credit almost 100% of the leads and the projects that we have done so far to networking. I think one very specific uncommon examples would be like what you would expect is that you actually meet a decision maker of a company in an event and they give a like they like what you do, they like what they hear when you say what you do, and they open up an opportunity and kind of have a discussion. But like few examples that I can bring up are like how I closed one of my biggest customers in Australia, who early this year raised about 125 Australian million dollars. What do you call to kind of essentially expand their business. How I closed that customer is simply through a person that I knew in one of these networking events who doesn't work there, who just happened to know a decision maker, kind of that they met through kind of one of the platforms.
Mm,
So customer that I closed, I didn't have direct connection with them. The person who introduced me also didn't have a proper direct connection because they were also just knowing online. So it came through three parties for me, just because I connected with this random person who is not in my industry, who is a very junior person, by the way, who just got into the agent space about a year ago. Like you don't have to always network with that expert or the most experienced person as well. I was just a nice human being for that person and connected and shared what I know. She shared what she knows about the industry that
mm,
she's in, and we just had a pleasant conversation in a network. That relationship helped me close like I don't know disclose
mm,
numbers, but like couple of million in terms of revenue just through just that random connection who was, like I said, not a stakeholder, not a decision maker, not even working in that company,
mm,
like completely
mm,
random. Uh, so stuff like that happens a lot in my life, like and networking also, like again, conversions happen sometimes over the time. Like I might, like I have examples even right now. I connected with someone like 4 years ago, maintain that relationships, which is very important,
mm,
maintaining, and then being on top of their
mm,
mind. And then over the last 4 years, like when they have an opportunity that they see, they quickly push it to me because they remember that I do something like that.
mm,
To do that, that is why I always mention also in the Spike event I mentioned that you need to be on their top of their mind, and you need to refresh their like memory, saying, hey, yes, hey, I exist, because the market is so crowded,
mm, mm.
right? There's so many services competing.
Right. So very interesting because being top of mind, refreshing memory structures. These are some of the words that I use with my clients when I advise them on how to do marketing. So there seems to be a nice overlap here as well. In the sense that you approach it, what do these things mean? How do you make sure that you are top of mind? How do you make sure that their memory is refreshed frequently?
Yeah. As your network grows, as you're like, in the business for a long time, it becomes tough, like, with time, because the number of people that you meet, the number of people that you get to know expands
Mm,
over time. Like, it's hundreds, it can be thousands over the couple of years, right? So it comes to a point where you can't personalize and be in touch with them all the time. In the sense, you can't text all the hundreds of people that write hundreds of emails
mm,
personalized to them. Um, but the medium or the tool that I have used to do that I have learned from, again, networking with people, is simply personal branding.
mm,
That is where you tell your story. That is where you show the human side of the business, your side of the business, where you use that as a tool to build the connection and the trust
mm,
over time. So it can be with people that I met. I would connect with them on LinkedIn. I would connect with them on Instagram, where I put out a lot of content. And if like I post few type of content, at least a story, at least one tweet every
mm,
single day, so that some of them, they see what I do, they see the progress that I make, they see what are the type of mistakes that I make. So they see like the human side of the business. That is the whole goal of personal
mm,
branding for me, and I would say for everyone. So when you do that, you're always on top of your mind, so you can build that trust, or be on top of the mind on like hundreds and thousands of
mm,
people, like at scale, with personal branding, which is one content that you create. It might speak to so many
mm,
people, and that is like a larger audience that you want to kind of be in touch with. That is how, like like how I found out about your work is also about the
mm,
videos that you do and the content that you are posting, right? So that is how you discover people
mm,
also. But there's also a set of people that you might need to have that personalized connection with, because they can have immediate impact on the business, or they would bring in like on a scale wise bigger impact to the
mm,
business. So these are like the decision makers, like investors, like board directors, C suite. It can be like some of those key individuals that you feel like can add a lot of value to your
mm,
business. For them, the personal branding aspect works, yes, because they see that you are making moves, they see that you are making progress, helps. But uh, like again, like I said, I always say, like when you're doing also networking, you need to play the like psychology game
mm,
as well. Like like I always say, people are selfish, people have ego, they like to kind of let's say talk about themselves. They feel good when someone reach out to them personally. Personalized means
mm,
something to a lot of humans. That's why in marketing also we try to do that, right? So maybe you can touch on that. But
mm,
we what I do is, then I have
mm,
something like either an email or either a WhatsApp message, or I use subs. I have a this is also something I learned from someone who is like junior to me, like who just 1 2 years in business. I learned from that by just speaking to him, right?
mm,
So he maintain a Substack, you call it, yeah, Substack email
mm,
list with the closest set of people he look for advices, and he constantly monthly write very specific emails to
mm.
them.
Okay.
These are not things that he would post on his like personal brand or whatever. He would post how much loss he made, how much profit he made in that month, like what are the exact problems that he's going through. So when he write that very specific type of email to like this set of like very close individuals that he want to personally be in touch with, then they feel value, that okay, this person is trusting me with this information, and I like the mistakes
Mm,
that they are making, I like the progress that they are making. So they feel like giving them more time and like opportunities and benefits. That is something that you should do also, like while you build it at scale, focus on those, like that cream of that set of people that you need to, that you think that can have a better impact and have a personalized kind of like interaction with them.
mm.
That is also important.
That's very interesting. So another thing that stuck with me at at your Spike talk, you took all the notes down in like one WhatsApp message. So I don't know which ones are from your talk and which ones are from Gayan's talk. So apologies in advance if I am quoting Gayan and asking you questions using that. So one thing that I heard is have a strong one-liner.
Mm.
So I would like to kind of get some more clarity on that. When you say strong one-liner, is this something static? Is this something that is written down and you have that memorized by heart and that is the one line you say, or is it more like something more dynamic? It depends on the situation, it depends on the event. How do you go about that?
The one liner is definitely, like I mentioned on the event also, it's very important part, because that is, yeah, the first impression can be a lot of things, but that specific one liner helps them um, see what are the interesting things about you and build credibility. Two things, like how interesting you are, and like it helps them build credibility around you. Like I mean, credibility builds over time, but from just one simple like method. So it's very important that you have something that helps them understand that yes, you are interesting, and the second thing is, yes, you are credible. So if you can incorporate some of those in that one line, it's very important. That's just a foundation. But from what I have seen most of the time it doesn't change. The one liner is the conversation, like not the conversation opener, I would say, like the conversation flows. And when you start with your one liner, that opens up a different type of conversation. And I would say let that flow. So the one liner should be something that also helps you do that. Like the credibility and the interest, you can, from the interesting parts, you can build a conversation. For an example, like even though it's a one liner, it's not like just one line. It's just that it's like a short 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 30 seconds. I would say a small intro, right? It's not just one liner per se. So I mean, not how I usually say it, but I will tell the points of what I have included in mine and why I have done it, right? So in mine I always starts with like like I always say, because it's a selling point. I say, hey, like I started my business the very next day my exam, like advanced A level exams finished when I was 19. And I started a technology services business called Code 94 Labs. And if you're wondering about what that 94 is, it's not when I was born, but that is the Sri Lankan country code. I happen to be wearing a 94 t-shirt as well, because I want to build a business that represents Sri Lanka on a global context, hence 94. And I scaled that to about 135 customers in 14 different countries globally. And currently, I'm obsessed about how hiring is done in an AI first world. Like, that is simply all the things that I say. So, from a credibility perspective, yeah, I've been in business for 5 years, was understood. I've built a business that served over 135 customers in 14 different regions, understood. So, that helps build credibility. The interesting parts that would open up a conversation is, oh yeah, you started the business at 19. Interesting. So how did you do that? So that is a conversation opener. And the last thing that I mentioned, which is now I am obsessed about how hiring is done in the AI first world. Not that's a different type of conversation opener. So there are like two conversation openers in that same sentence, same thing that I mentioned. So that is how I have structured it and what I have seen that work. And for me, it works commonly across different categories of people. Even for someone junior who is just starting out in business, that helps. Even from someone who is like way higher in their journey, even for them, it's interesting.
Okay, that makes sense. So how I understood one liner at that point in time was um, as if it was like a slogan. So explaining maybe what you do or what you stand for. What I'm understanding now is it's a little bit
Mm.
different. It's more about maybe
Yeah.
leaving a hook open so that they might pick up on it and then ask a follow-up question. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, I would say then like the best name for it would be like an elevator pitch. That would be the best name. So like 30 seconds, how can you pitch
Mm.
yourself that make an interest and credibility?
So what I'm hearing now is that it's not necessarily one line where you go and say, I am so and so. It's it's you being a little self-aware, understanding the key attributes about yourself that might interest a potential outsider and organizing it in a meaningful, easy to understand way.
Yeah, 100%. Like one liner, the best way to put it would be in like the product world or the startup world, we call it an elevator pitch. So the elevator pitch is
Mm,
where we, talk about, because like the concept whole starts when, you might run into someone interesting or a VC or someone in an elevator where you have probably 30 seconds to pitch in or, tell what you
mm,
do. In that 30 seconds that you go from like one flow for another flow or like few flows, how can you make it interesting and get them to remember you? That is the concept in startup world, but that is to introduce your product, but this is to introduce yourself. So in like elevator pitch for yourself is what I would say that you should work on with two attributes, like something that
mm,
builds curiosity, interest, while something that also builds credibility.
mm, mm. So two things I gathered from that. One is it needs to be created for attention, like how you would go about building a hook. Two is it needs to be organized in a way that it can be committed to memory easily.
100%.
Make sense?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. How did you get to your one liner?
Yeah. A lot of trial and error because in the initial stage, like the mistakes that I did, that I see that other people are doing is that you start conversations with one line itself. So I started as soon as I go to the person that I'm interested in, I just start talking about myself. This is what I do. This is what I do. Giving all the information, not allowing them to think through something, and they just lose interest. Because just like in everything that you do in like marketing, also like you have that first 3 seconds to capture the attention
Mm,
online from someone. You have a little bit more when you meet in person, just probably 30
mm,
seconds. But after that, they also lose interest and they also lose their train of thought and their this thing, right? So
yeah.
initially, it's a lot of like what I see everyone is doing. What I did also is you go and bombard with them with so many information so that you don't allow them to think and something. Like for example, the last point that I mentioned when I am pitching in myself, like I mentioned earlier, is that like I say, I'm currently obsessed about solving the problem of how hiring is done in an AI first
Mm,
world. I give them so many things to think about it from that just one like okay like hiring in a new world like AI in hiring okay like what is this guy up to like like I have so many different things that they
mm,
can just think through from that just one point that I just mentioned. But
mm,
if I go and talk about hey I'm building a product like that is an AI agent that would have a conversation with you and see if they are. I mean, there's something interesting but still boring. You have to like just process what
mm,
I'm sharing as fast as I'm saying it. It's not going to work out, right? So
mm,
initially it's a lot of information bombarding, but then I trial and error. To see what works and how you trial and error is I would say few things that you can look into. Number one is their facial expression to see how the interest is retained
mm,
or dropped off because from eye contact to they can go to like looking at somewhere else, start talking to someone else or whatever. So that body language and eye contact that they have, because I'm speaking of networking in kind of an IRL context,
mm,
physical context. That is one way. The second would be if I meet them the second time, will they remember me? Like, do they remember anything that
mm,
I mentioned? Or else can they even recognize me, right? So that is like
mm,
one other very important factor that I looked into to see whether what I mentioned them stick by them. So by those kind of
mm,
certain like clues that I get, I
mm,
over the time did it. Like I made more like that is a simple mistake that you can do, but it can be
mm,
very expensive if you don't solve it. Like for example, the first ever time that I went outside of the country was 2022. That was when I was able to earn my own money.
mm,
And when I went there, I went to Malaysia for 2 weeks to try and expand in APAC region. I did the mistake of not having my proper elevator pitch when I went
mm,
to carry these people. I was able to network my way to get so many meetings. I got about 20, 30 meetings probably lined up within that 2 weeks that I was there.
mm,
But it was very limited amount of proper network and proper relationships that I was able to build because I was not ready with my elevator pitch and it was not interesting for them to kind of keep the relationship ongoing. So that was a $500,000 mistake that I did. Like that whole trip, I couldn't get the proper ROI because I didn't have that. So
mm,
you can make the mistake in that level if if you didn't actually work on that one line and your kind of proper
mm,
conversation ability. So that's why it's very
mm.
important. Like I say, attend to these kind of events, put yourself out there, and the ROI will be better. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you a follow-up question. I think this is a little philosophical, but
Yeah.
um, you can do networking only at networking events. True or false?
Completely false. Um, do you have the other part of that question, or should I like expand on it?
No, please elaborate.
Okay. Like I intentionally go and work at some places. I started doing that recently, where
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people I want to network with hang out. Like for an example, you will find me in the Shangri-La lobby probably every
Hmm.
week. I go there, sit down, and work in kind of the peak hours, which is like either the mornings or either the like after late evenings.
Hmm.
Most of the time, whenever I'm Colombo, like even though I have a meeting like in Colombo somewhere completely different, I would go there and work because the amount of high quality people that you can meet there is insane. Like I've run
Hmm.
into investors who are just in a business trip, kind of who are just working in the lobby. I have. I'm literally at the point that we're speaking. I'm closing a deal that's above eight figures in healthcare just by a random person that I met
Hmm.
about a year ago in the lobby. I met them, that conversation like went, that's it. Didn't have a lot of connections going on, but right now
Hmm.
we are working on a deal. So the where network can happen is definitely not limited to networking events. That's why it's a skill that you should acquire so that you
Hmm.
can kind of do that over the time, like anywhere that you are in, right? Because
Hmm.
once you get to that, probably like that networking rhythm, you go, like you go and talk to people naturally. Like when you see someone interesting, the first thing that comes to your mind is, hey, like I want to speak to that person. It's a
Hmm.
tough thing to do. Like you need to break. That's why I say always networking is tough. You need to go out of your comfort
Hmm.
zone a lot. Like you need to like
Hmm.
get rid of that awkwardness and go in front of that person and just introduce.
Hmm.
Even if it might turn out to be a very awkward conversation, that's fine. It's a part of the game.
Hmm.
But doing that has opened up so many doors. So I think it's not just the networking events. It's just a concentrated place where the like everyone is coming with like a one goal, or like everyone is coming with kind of the intention to that. So you are
Hmm.
that awkwardness is probably a little bit out of the context, or the awkwardness is a little bit low because everyone
Hmm.
comes there with an open mind. Other places they might be not, so it's a
Hmm.
little bit tough, but you need to also respect boundaries. That is also very important. You need to like read a little bit if they are okay to do that. Are they in a meeting, or like are they
Hmm.
with their kids? Like you shouldn't do that in those places. It's very important.
Hmm.
I think if you respect the boundaries and if you spot the right opportunity, if someone is interesting, I would say definitely going and talking to them in public places have, uh, like from experience, have better ROI for me also.
Okay. Okay. So as you were
Uh,
explaining that,
one, yeah, one more
sorry,
interesting
go ahead.
thing that I was not able to do. Sorry, I just wanted to mention this if someone can do it, which is I have not done this personally, but people that I know who are like experienced in the industry have done it, which is going to some of these fancy gyms have worked out pretty well for them. Like that's something very surprising, but they have closed so many massive deals by just being in the right gyms. Because these people that you want to work with, sometimes in like in the higher caliber, they also won't come into these networking events, right? So you won't find them there. But
Hmm.
places like a really good gym, they might be there, and you can probably connect with them over there because that's a place where you can have an open conversation and connect with them openly because they're mostly free. They won't have their device mostly with them, like they'll be open.
Hmm.
That has worked pretty well for them. I'm yet to do that, but that's something that I've heard that worked pretty well.
That's something that actually crossed my mind, and I am actually shifting gyms next month. That's not the only reason, but that thought crossed my mind. But
Nice.
again, I'm completely scared and overwhelmed by the fact that I need to go and talk to people. Right. So that's what you said is so interesting because I read this article on Substack recently where it spoke about, in the age of uh, where education is freely available on the internet and there's AI to guide your learning process. The only real value add of a university is networking.
100%. 100%. Um, why I say is not from my experience, that I have to say,
Hmm.
because to be honest, like being very honest, I failed my A levels. I didn't get into any
Hmm.
university.
Hmm.
But I have seen, like, for an example, I have clients who bring me other clients just from their university. Like, for an example, um, there's someone probably most of you guys might not know, but he's like a legend in the IT services space called Joe Leonara.
Hmm.
So he is now based in UK. So we work with
Okay.
him. He has a massive network. What do you call the universities that he has been to, and even his wife's universities that what do you call that wife is from UK, so the university I think something like Oxford or something of that sorts. So
Mm,
he goes with her to their like events where that has opened so many doors for him. And then he has mentioned that that is one really important and good way that he has built his network. The
mm,
current person that I spoke that I am currently working with like on a like a really good deal. He's from Harvard, so
mm,
he has massive amount of like good connections and network just by attending Harvard. So I think
mm,
that is in default already there, but the value
mm,
given to that specific area of the education system, like you said, will 100% improve over time, because most of the universities are also going online. They're online first universities where
mm,
physical networking event, like physical kind of connection is that's the selling point for them, because the people who learn there definitely will go out to kind of do great things. So you get to
mm,
be in touch with them or build relationship with them at a very early stage of their
mm,
career. And as soon as they kind of excel in their careers, now you have someone that you know from for a long time. So I think 100% I have seen that work from my clients and partners already, and it will
mm.
definitely amplify towards the future.
Okay, good. So pointers for anyone who's watching: go to go to gym, go to a good gym. All right. So I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here because you told me just now that even somewhere like the lobby of a hotel is a good place to do networking as long as you're aware of boundaries and aware of context. As you were explaining that, I was quite aware of what was happening inside myself. I was sensing a lot of fear, cortisol happening internally because putting myself in that situation, I can never kind of imagine me walking to someone else who I don't know and initiating a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
For someone like me, what would be your advice? How do I, in that situation, how do I approach that and how do I make a meaningful connection?
I think the first thing is people are not so bad, right? Like what we think is it's going to turn out to be a very awkward conversation. Like I will have to pull the conversation on my back. Like
Mm,
what would happen. So like we think like what I believe is your beliefs and not what I believe, which is the truth, which is your beliefs and your values define what actions you're going to take, right? So if you
mm,
believe people to be, or if you believe the world to be like a very like untrustworthy place, cruel place,
mm,
your actions equivalently going to be conservative. You're not going to be open up to anyone. You're not going to talk to many people. You want to keep things to yourself. You are like
mm,
you scared that people would judge you. So that belief that you have is what creates these actions that on how you live and how you go about to do things.
mm,
It's really tough to change those beliefs and values, but if
mm,
you want to change the results of your life, your actions need to change. And if your actions need to change, your beliefs and values need to change. So I think the
mm,
first step is for you to like change your beliefs of saying, hey, like if something goes awkward, like it's going to be uncomfortable. All that belief, that value that you think that drives that action, try to
mm,
change it. And the only way to change it is also by taking the action. So it's a little bit
mm,
correlated. So when you take action to change that belief, then eventually you change it. So first of all, it's a mind game, which is like okay, hey, it's fine, I'm going to put myself out there. Because the right person, not the right person, most of the time if you also connect with someone, if they sense that, like if someone talk to me, I do that. If I sense that, hey, this is the first time that they're probably doing that, so they're a little bit awkward, I drag the
Mm,
conversation. Like I try to pull the conversation and make them feel comfortable. That is what happened to
mm,
me when I started out, so that I then the other person also then becomes more open and more kind of comfortable. So most of the time,
mm,
like I've experienced that when I put myself out there and taking action, the other person, if they are a good person, which I believe most of the time it is the case, they would carry on the conversation and ask, hey, like, what are you doing? Like,
mm,
blah, blah. Then they would pull the conversation and bring you to a state where you feel good, and then you can carry on from there. So
mm,
that is, I would say, what I believe. Like, people are good than you sometimes believe them to be. So
mm,
it's sometimes important to change that belief and your values, and then actions
mm.
results happens after.
So, what are some of the things you say to open the conversation? Is it that one liner, or do you say something else?
Yeah. So, like, that's something I wanted to touch on earlier, but good it flowed into this conversation. Is that never start with yourself, like, never start with your one liner. This is why I said earlier also, like in the networking game, or like, when you are, want to connect with someone, it's a lot to do with the psychology that you play, as like a psychological game that you play as well. Um, because like I said, people are like, everyone, there's a selfish side for it. This is not the bad selfish I'm talking about. This is the human nature, selfish, and they have a
Mm,
little bit of an ego. So everyone feels good when they get to talk about themselves, their achievements, and when they share some knowledge, when they share lessons, they automatically feel
mm,
good. They come to a certain good state that they feel good about themselves. I try to first of all bring them to that state. So how you bring them to that state is by asking them the right questions that open up a conversation, that get them to share about something about themselves that they feel good about themselves. So
mm,
that is where I start with. In networking, one of the very important parts is the questions that you ask. Um, what I've seen that most of the people, what they do is, the opening questions are, hey, how do I get more clients? How do I go international? Like, those are the two main specific questions everyone asks in Sri Lanka when you meet and go to these networking events. But, try to be
mm,
different, like I said, in the Spike event also, and ask some questions that open up a conversation that get them to remember you by, because
mm,
you are the person who asked that radical questions or the different set of questions. I mean, the questions can vary, like maybe we can touch it on the next question, but once you ask those set of questions, then when they share about themselves, what I do is I wait for permission to share what I do. So when we
mm,
do that, they have more interest towards us automatically by default. If I try to
mm,
force it in, they would hear it, but the success rate is not that great. But
mm,
when they ask you, hey, what do you do? Now they ask with the interest, with the kind of, let's say, um, the focus towards you. So now whatever
mm,
you're going to say, the percentage of that sticking by them in like is drastically increased. So
mm,
like I said, I ask the right questions to make them feel good and come to a certain like comfortable level. Wait for
mm,
permission for them to kind of ask, hey, like, okay, like you asking interesting questions, like that's what's going on their mind. What do you do? When you ask that question, that is the one liner. That is where you open up your one liner, so that you have that 30 seconds window in the attention span for you to like, try
mm,
and get
mm,
so much as valid, and then that builds the
mm,
conversation from there. That is kind of my framework of what I've seen, not
mm.
seen, like
Okay,
experience that works.
experience. So to editorialize a little bit there, I think um, there's this thing called self-determination theory in the behavioral sciences, and what I've noticed, going by what you said, is you are bringing them into a position where the autonomy control, or that freedom to say no, you don't rob it off them, you give it to them. That is what
Mm,
I captured when you said, you wait for their permission to open up about yourself and tell them what you do.
mm, mm,
So I think if anyone's watching, It's to kind of give them the control to say, yes, now tell me about you. I am interested. I think at that point, they have made the sufficient effort in their minds to receive all of the information that's coming their way.
100%. Yeah, you put it nicely. Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I think you said you are going to touch on specific questions that you might ask to warm them up. I think it
Mm.
links back to the next question I have for you. One other thing you
Okay.
said at Spike is don't sell, ask for advice. Again, from a behavioral science point of view, it makes so much sense because, again, you are giving them control, you are giving them some endowment so that they value the connection even more. But I would like to know, in your terms, in your worldview, um, how does this work? Why does this work? And what kind of questions do you ask?
Okay. Shall we maybe start with questions first and maybe go to
Yeah, okay.
the advice perspective as well? So, um, in the networking perspective, when you like meet someone for like, where you get only about, let's say, 3 to 5 minutes probably with them or less, in that sense the question that you ask can be a little bit different. So I'll probably start there,
Mm,
in the networking process. So in there, like I said, always the questions that you ask helps them understand a lot about you. It helps the person that you are networking with understand where you are at your journey, what type of mistakes that you are doing, how
mm,
mature you are in the work that you are doing. So they get to understand so much about you. Like the difference between a question such as, hey, how can I go international versus, what are the exact, let's say, I don't know. Or else, what difference in your business you had to make when you were going from a local services business to a global services business in order for global businesses to find you attractive? Those are two different set of questions. And when
mm,
you ask that, they know that, hey, this person knows there are changes to be done in the business in order to do that. So I can share
mm,
some value to that person. So asking the right question helps them understand a lot about you. So that is just the first level that you need to understand.
mm,
And in terms of the questions that you ask, there are two types of people that you meet, right? The people that you know, in the sense you have seen them, like like for an example, like I always take that example because everyone knows, like Banuka, everyone knows about
mm,
him. The personal branding, he talks about a lot of things that he do on social media.
mm,
So you know that person directly, and you intentionally want to network with them. And there's
mm,
random people that you meet, like I said, on the in the Shangri-La lobby or the gym, not probably in the gym, but the Shangri-La lobby or like a business event or whatever, where you don't know anything about them, no context. You just know their name and their
mm,
title. Okay, this is a VC. That's it.
mm,
So those are the two type of people that you meet in this, networking context. And how I approach both from the questions perspective is different. Let's start with the latter that I mentioned, which is someone who you don't know, that you don't have a
mm,
context. What I do is like I just have about 2 to 3 like killer questions that are open ended that I can ask anybody, that helps them remember me, but also
mm,
helps build curiosity and open up a conversation.
mm,
So there are so many questions that I usually ask trial and all that. One thing that I commonly ask everyone is that, like, what is an interesting problem that you are currently passionate about solving in this point of your life?
mm,
And it can spark a lot of things, like someone can talk about something personal to them, someone can talk about something very specific in their business that they're currently solving. So I asked that very specific question, so that is not something everyone asks, but
mm,
this is also something that you can ask many people. And like I said, it is different, so they have an interest towards you, and then it opened up a very nice conversation. So if it ticks those two
mm,
boxes, I would say build some set of questions like that so that you can open up
mm,
conversations with anyone that you meet, despite you having any
mm,
context of it or not.
mm,
So that is like the first level that I do, like the people that I don't know. People I
mm,
know, I go to them always with like one very specific questions. Like this is something that I have learned by trial and error, but when like I mean when I speak to Banuka, something that he mentioned very like, and I think yeah, like we usually chat very often when I'm going through some tough time in business. So one thing he
Mm.
mentioned earlier this year was like he went to Dhammika Pereira and like had some like one day a 4 hour chat. And a 4 hour
Mm.
chat with Dhammika Pereira is not something that you can get usually very often. Like
Mm.
even 1 hour, 30 minutes is tough to get with him. So why
Yeah.
what he mentioned was like I asked like how many like what how do you do that, like how many questions do you ask him, like he was like I just went with one exact thing, only one thing that I want to know, and that one thing is deep enough for even him to find it interesting and have a very deep conversation on. So the power
Mm.
of like that one thing that you can ask is very important when you specifically have context about someone. So that
Mm.
is what I do. So for the people that I want to network with, but I have not talked to them before, but I know them
Mm.
through researching about them, like by the social media, like, you know, the content that they post. I go to them with a very specific interesting question that would spark their mind. Like, I gave an example on Spike about like Banuka, but I'll give a different example. So, I mean, it can be very simple, but it can open up a conversation. Like, I one day randomly cold emailed kind of Shivan, who is the CEO of MIT,
Mm.
MIT ESP. So it's a 600-person IT, and everyone knows MIT. So I
Mm.
called email and got a meeting with him. And one thing that I did before the meeting was that he's someone who doesn't have like any digital footprint, like no social media, whatever, right? So what I did
Mm.
was still I did my research and found blogs that he wrote about 10, 15 years ago, that
Okay.
kind of helped me understand his context back then, because he used to
Mm. Mm.
be
Mm.
in UK for the longest time and then moved back to Sri Lanka. He wrote a lot of things about how UK operates, and soon as that is when he stopped writing. As soon as he moved back, he wrote a blog about the differences that he found between living in UK and Sri Lanka about 10, 12 years ago. So I use context of that to bring up a
Mm.
conversation. And when I do that, he was like, hey man, this guy has done the research. This guy is like, I usually don't put out anything, but he has put the
Mm.
effort to that, which is the most important part. Effort to do
Mm.
that and ask questions around that. Like I ask questions about like, hey, you mentioned this specific difference in UK and LK back then. How do you feel about it now? Like, it's the same. Likewise, there are very specific questions
Mm.
to him that can open up a spark of conversation. But he also find it interesting because this guy has put some effort into building this relationship killer. They feel that, you know,
Mm.
confident. So that is
Mm.
why, like I said, the question that you ask, start the conversation is very important. And like I
Mm.
say, you always don't connect with the people that you know. People that you know go with a very specific cast that you have, but people that you don't know have like 1 to 3 open-ended killer questions that is different that you
Mm.
can spark a conversation. So start there, I would say,
Mm.
and then that is how you let it flow. Just since I have been
Okay.
speaking for a long time, just to refresh even the listeners' mind, like what was the second part that we were going to go into, Karan?
Second part in the sense.
So the question was one, and the other one that you wanted me to touch in this question was,
Right. So why do you think that works well? It was the second
Mhm.
part. Yeah.
Right. Um, yeah, I think why questions works well is like I mentioned that the things that I mentioned in the first
Mm.
stage, right, which is um, question like rather than you sharing like what you are doing and where you are at, the questions help them kind of understand a lot about you, like I mentioned, about where
Mm.
you are at your journey, like how experienced you are. So that the question is important. And always the part about networking is that conversation is the part, right? Like networking is not just
Mm.
you bombarding information, that conversation is what's most important. Just you telling
Mm.
what you do probably is not the best conversation opener, but questions are the
Yeah.
most important. Is how conversations are like brought up and how conversations are
Mm.
flown. So that is why I say you should start with questions, and flow with
Yeah.
questions, and then wait for permission, like I mentioned earlier, to start with your elevator pitch and then take it from there.
Right, right. And most of these questions are you asking them for advice, relevant advice, right?
Yeah, that is what we were getting into, right? The advice component of it.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. So, like mentioned, so now we are going to a different part, which is like don't sell, but go and network with the people in terms of advisors, so that you can take it from there. Okay, like that is how like sell most of the time. And
mm,
currently, now I was always taking examples from my services business, right? So for this question, I'll kind of go into my product business, which is Talvin AI.
mm,
So Talvin AI is very simply, our goal is to eliminate screening interviews in the interview process. So screening interviews
mm,
is where 60% or more than 50% of recruiters' time is spent. And from the time
mm,
spent on that, more than 6 to 70% they spend with the wrong candidates. So if you look at the recruiter's journey and the time and effort, most of their time is spent with the wrong candidates rather than the right candidates. And from
mm,
that, screening is where it mostly happen. If we eliminate screening interviews, you drastically bring it down from 50, 60% to like probably 10, 20%, because you have that best of
mm.
the best candidates. That's what we do. But
Okay.
now, am I an HR expert? Am I someone who is a recruitment expert?
Mm,
Have I like do I have decades of experience in HR? No, but I found this problem and I built a product out of it. And this problem was something that I personally went through in my business when I was scaling. That's it. I just went through the problem. I saw a solution for it and we built it. But I am an expert in the industry? No. Um, so then I know that I have a inherited like disadvantage where if let's say a recruitment leader in the industry who has let's say 1, 2 decades of industry experience partner up with another technology person and build a product, they would build sometimes a better product here because they have that insights more than what I have right
mm,
now. So I understand
mm,
that there's a inherited disadvantage. How I then fill that gap is by, like I said, always networking towards these what you call advisors, and I also do that intentionally um, with kind of the sales process in mind. Have that inherited disadvantage when I'm going against maybe a competitor who has a recruitment leader or HR leader in their founding team who has decades of experience
mm,
building a product, right? So that is something that I definitely understood and I kind of accepted early on. So then what I did was there was only one way to fulfill that gap. There are multiple ways, but the way that I thought that would be the most ideal is that just like how I did for my services business, where when I want to learn, when I want to understand how things are being done, I went and network with the people that I want to kind of, or as network with the people who have done things that I want to do. I did the same here, which is
mm,
I network with the HR leaders, the CPO, the Chief People Officer, CHRO, Chief Human Resource Officer, recruitment lead, head of recruitment, head of HR, head of training. Likewise, I went ahead and network with these people so that I can try and fill this gap, which I will get into in a minute. But
mm,
when I actually look at it, my target audience is also them, right? Like for my product, the
mm,
person who would be purchasing and making the decision of this product is them. So I'm in that very
mm,
beautiful intersection where I like the experts that I want to network with in order to understand my kind of where the product should go and how the product should improve are the same set of people that I want to sell to. So
mm,
what I did was, even though that's the case, I did not go the self-first approach to kind of, get introduced to them and talk to them. I went with the advice first approach, where it's much more
mm,
easier for them to connect with, and they are more open to do that because since they are also in the HR and the people culture, that is something that they're naturally more aligned to, which is talking to people, sharing what they know, training, coaching people. That is something they're naturally aligned to do. So then I took that approach, which is the
mm,
easiest approach to get connected to someone, which is purely also, it's not a like a sales gimmick per se. This also is a pure
mm,
important part because, like I said, talking to them will help me genuinely improve my product, which is, if they are a
mm,
customer, is going to again genuinely help them as well, right? So it's like a very nice intersection.
mm,
So when I take that advice first approach, like I said, very easy to get connected with them. They are much more open to give time. And during that time, I
mm,
ensure to, while I ask the right set of questions to understand where they think the industry is heading, what they think about my product, all that, I try to, within the conversation, try to ensure that I get them to a state where the problem that I'm solving, they get more aware of how severe this problem is. Because I
mm,
go and tell them about this problem that I'm solving. Important it is, like, to think about how AI should be used in HR, how recruitment is now going to completely change in the future. Because having access to more education very easily, and with AI tools, candidates can apply in volume to so many roles. So the available pool of
mm,
candidates increase. How are you going to deal with this? So I emphasis on this like problem statement also, so that while they are also advising me, they also understand, oh shit, this is actually a problem that exists for me as well. This is actually something
mm,
that would solve a problem for me. So now they take a
mm,
little bit of a personal kind of approach for this, saying, hey, yes, let me, like, tell you, this is what I think, this is what I think. But also let me go a step ahead. Like, I think your solution caters to a big problem that I have. Why not I try it and also give you some more feedback? And that is the opening for
mm,
you
mm,
to
mm,
sell the product as well. Because if you listen to their feedback, if you incorporate that wisely, not all their feedback, but incorporate that wisely, that aligns with your product direction, and get them to try out the product and give more detailed feedback. Now they are like more onboarded into what you are doing, and they will eventually, once you get that foot in the door, now it's your time to add value and sell the product. And now when you do
mm,
that, you have a customer for life. So that is like the approach. This approach, exact approach, I used to convert, if you know a company called Mind Valley in APAC region. Mind Valley is one of the
mhm,
largest education technology companies in APAC. They do about $150 million a
mm,
year. I'm actually going to Malaysia in 3 days just to like actually meet them and talk to them as well, because they are a customer that I
yeah,
converted the same exact way.
mm,
Like, I reached
mm,
out to them
mm,
for advice, and they saw, hey, yeah, this is exactly a tool that I'm looking for, right time, right solution. And they was one of the first customers that adopted the tool, which is an amazing
mm,
kind of, let's say, opportunity for just a few month old startup, and also
mm,
a great validation to where the product is heading. So advice first
mm.
approach has 100% work for me, but it should always go align with an actual, let's say, reasoning behind it for you to do that also.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I'm seeing two kind of paths or approaches here. One is a very targeted approach where you understand first these are the people that I want to be asking for advice, or these are the people that I want using this product, and then you go after them, and most likely this is going to be a one-on-one event. And then there's also the completely, I would not say completely, but somewhat random kind of networking event or hotel lobby kind of situation where you go with an open mind and you meet who you meet. And there are two distinct ways to approach this. That's what I'm hearing. Or did I get something wrong?
No, 100%, 100%. You also need to have the two approaches so that your possibility to network with people increases. Because if you only target the people
Mm,
that you know, then you're missing out on a lot. So you should have something that caters to
mm,
people that you don't know, that you still capture that opportunity.
mm. Right, right. So when we're talking, sorry, when we're discussing networking in this context, we also mean the one-on-one angle where you do your research, you ask them maybe out for a cup of coffee and then ask them for advice. Is that how it works with the one-on-one approach?
Yeah, one-on-one approach, like the advice approach, works 100% that way. Like it's just like a coffee chat that you would
Mm,
like request. We give the
mm,
power, like you correctly mentioned, we give the power to them to make decision on how it's comfortable for them. Mostly, it can
mm,
be in the office, or else it can be a coffee chat also. And that utilizing that whatever the 30 minutes or 1 hour that you have to get the best out of it is like that is something that you have to like master over time.
mm. Okay, okay, awesome. You also touched on, the importance of incorporating the advice that you're given, which leads me to the question: how do you filter out the shit advice?
Um, so in terms of like advice, like there are different types. Like there are the advices that they give on how the business should be run, how like your product
Mm,
direction should be going. So there are different types of advices. But what I'm careful of is like something that I somehow stumbled across during early stages of my journey, like 5 years ago, was that you only take advice from the people who have done what you want to do or achieved what you want to achieve. For an example, if I want to get my advice on how to structure my, let's say, technology services business, I don't go and like listen to someone who is in the hospitality business who has given me advice to do that. I would take the advice more seriously and give it more effort and time if it's coming from someone who has built a successful technology services business. Like that's like the very basic
mm,
framework that I follow. But it's
mm,
very important that you are open to advices. Because when someone is giving advice to you, it's a personal thing that they share, that they feel valued. So you don't go ahead and kind of just completely, like, let's say, disvalue it or like show that you are not going to talk about it, you are not going to disvalue it. It's important to give it some value. But it's important that the decisions that you make end of the day, it's your responsibility. You can't go ahead and in business,
mm,
you can't especially go ahead and say, hey, like, this person gave me this advice and I did it and it failed. That is not a valid response at all in business. Whatever you do is your actions,
mm,
right? So end of the
mm,
responsibility comes to you. Hence, do what's true to
mm,
you. Do what you think that is true to you. It's very important, whatever the despite advice that you get.
mm,
Like for an example, I am pro Sri Lankan. Like again, like I said, it's in the company name, like 94. I want to build a
mm,
business that really represents Sri Lanka on a global context. That we go with, hey, Sri Lanka has great
mm,
technology talent. Let's work together. Um,
mm,
that's that, and then there are other organizations in the same technology vertical that I've met and I've spoken to that does about 10-15 million dollars a year. They are fully based in Sri Lanka,
mm,
and what they do is they whitewash the company. The client doesn't even know that there's a team in Sri Lanka, but there's about 120%
mm,
team in Sri Lanka. It's fully whitewashed. The project managers, BAs, everyone is just from those regions, so they don't even know. So they're actually utilizing the Sri Lankan talent and kind of delivering some global world class work, but they whitewash it in order to kind of have a better opportunity and a better ROI, which actually worked pretty well for them. Because taking Sri Lanka out there, it has its pros and cons, definitely. But still, when I network with that person, what the advice that they give is, hey, like if you want to really grow global, better to kind of have a little bit of a whitewashing to kind of represent as a global, like a US somewhat of a base company, so that you can charge more, you have more value there and all that, rather than going with the Sri Lanka first, where price is where you are value from mostly competing from. But that is not an advice that I'm not going to. That is not an advice that I'm going to take. Yes, they have built something that I want to have, like a 10-15 million dollar business. Like that's amazing. Run rate business is amazing. He has done what I want to do, but am I going to do it? No, because that is not true to me. So that is where it's very important that even though you look into, first of all, have they done what I want to do? But again, is it true to me as like someone, as a human being, right? So that is very important for you to align on those two items. Um, and yeah, end of the day, like trial and error is what's going to work. So you're going to hear some advices. You're going to take a bet on some of those advices and do them, and you're going to fail on some of them. So that's fine, because making mistakes is very important part of the journey. So you need to also make some fuck ups to understand what advice to take or not.
Definitely, definitely. I think fucking up is essential.
100%.
Um, I mean, interesting kind of segue into entirely different conversation, which is the Sri Lankan identity and how we try so hard to suppress that
Yeah.
when we kind of go global, right?
Yeah.
I'm radically against that myself and actively kind of taking steps to get out of that mold.
Yeah.
Because I don't think um, cost difference is the only value addition that we can bring.
100%.
I think, okay, take a bit of a historic route, but this was the hotbed of spiritual and philosophical development, going back to 2,500, 3,000 years ago, right? And we kind of gave that thinking to the rest of the world. I don't think cost difference is where we should play at. We should play at the quality of thought, the quality of ideas. I think this region produces some of the best thinkers that's just been suppressed by, colonialism and this old Victorian values.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a conversation for later.
Yeah, it's a completely different topic. Yeah.
Uh, Going into my next kind of two questions, this is again, let's say if I was to kind of map out an overarching template for this is more personal problems that I've had when reaching out to people. Like you initially said, I'm a bit of a skeptic. And because of that, I have a specific set of problems that I would need solutions for. And I've spoken to a lot of people with a similar set of, problems. Because right now, if you look at the consumer technology that is coming out, the entire world is in this game of making things easier, which means people now have a motivation to actively avoid doing the hard things, like reaching out to a completely new person and saying, "Hey, I'm doing this. Can I, sit with you for a coffee and ask a few questions?" Right? It's so much more easier to just take your phone out and scroll down LinkedIn and live in that illusion of progress, an illusion of okay, I'm looking at someone's LinkedIn posts and I'm educating myself through that. I don't need to make real life connections. Right, so it's along this line that I'm going to ask the questions that I'm asking you.
Yeah.
The first one of these things is, how do you spot manipulators? Feel free to tell me that this is completely irrelevant and this doesn't happen in the networking scene.
Yeah.
But this is just purely questions as I imagine them.
Yeah. Um, from my experience, from what because I'm also out there, from what I see, um, you really don't come across those kind of people that intentionally drive those kind of decisions personally when you try to network with someone. In a sense, they don't manipulate you by knowing you and want to influence your decisions. They would kind of share their point of view on things that can be radically different to what you think and what others say. That is not just manipulation, that is just what their belief is. That is why I say it's important, like you also said, filter out what comes through. But intentionally knowing where you're going, who are your customers, and trying to do something like in terms of manipulative, it's probably not the networking, not the people that you want to network with, not the people that you don't know and you network with who would do that. It's the people that you know who would do that. So it's actually coming later down the stage on your journey. That is where the
Right.
manipulators are, not in the early stage when you get to know someone and understand. So like, because they don't know you, you don't know them. There's nothing in terms of that level of influence that they can make, and you would feel in that level. So it's something that would not
Okay.
affect in the networking stage, but later stage probably. Most of the time, friends are your manipulators sometimes that who come in disguise to do that. So in this conversation context, I would say that is not something that you need to worry about. Because again, you can't
Right.
spot manipulators in that early of the stage. So when you build the
Mm,
relationship,
mm,
and if it comes to a stage where you becomes friends and more close, that is when it happens, which is
mm.
that you have to play with your sense on that.
Got it. Got it. And earlier on this conversation, I kind of mentioned about limiting beliefs that one might have about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that my limiting belief is that I think, um, I think I am a bit of an introvert. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I'm past the point of kind of trying to figure that one out. But maybe it's the belief, maybe it's who I am inherently, but
Mm-hmm.
that prevents me from going out and speaking to another person. It kind of freaks me out when I have to walk across the hall at the Shangri-La lobby and speak to some stranger.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're that kind of person? I know for a fact there are a lot of people like me, but
Yeah.
what is your advice in that case?
Like I said, that framework is what we have to go back to, which is like the belief, value, identity. Like your beliefs, your values, your identity defines your actions and define the results that eventually come across. So if you want to
Hmm,
change, like if you think that change, like if you're not happy with the results that you're currently getting out of your life, then that means your actions need to
hmm,
change. That means your beliefs, values, identity needs to change. And
hmm,
specifically, you need to understand that business is essentially it comes down to people. Like you need to work with
hmm,
people, people work under you. Like it comes down to people. So if you are in business, that
hmm,
is something that you don't have to be great at, but that is something that you need to put yourself out there to kind of
hmm,
do that. And like I said, like we can go back to think, hey, like if I'm an introvert, why do you think I'm an introvert? Is like the question that
hmm,
if anyone can ask. I was not an introvert, but I was afraid of like awkward conversations. In the sense, I was
hmm,
afraid of being judged. Was my reason to not go through because I was not good at having
hmm,
like good converse. I can't speak in English well back then, and then though
hmm,
that is what I was scared of, like if I leave the wrong impression. But I changed my belief, saying, hey, like fuck it, like I mean, if that is the case, but I would just get it as even that I took the first step to speak to someone and I got rid of that
hmm,
specific kind of belief I had. So I just focus my energy more on that making that mistake. More than making that mistake, I focused on the action that I take, like the first step that I took. I gave more value to that. And
hmm,
I gave more value to
hmm,
my confidence, like that my ability to take action. Then rather I would not focus on like whatever the outcome that it comes, but I reward myself for like that action that I took. And when you do that
hmm,
over time, then only you can like change your belief, change your actions, because you can do that when you see the results also changing in real time. Because in networking, like it's a long term game, but also the results can be sometimes very immediate in terms of the output that you get. I'm not talking about
hmm,
financials only, but like the other things that I mentioned in the very early stage of the discussion can definitely come true, so that then you get more motivated to change that belief, identity, values that you have.
hmm.
But in the end of the day,
Okay.
that awkwardness or that thing that can be there. That is why in business sometimes there are different players, different co-founders with different skill sets, right? There's a CTO who
Hmm,
might not be the best people person, and there's like the business side of the person who is the good at that. So you don't have to
hmm,
completely change yourself and push yourself out there if it's completely not true to you. Then probably that side of the business is not probably to you. Then you can work with
hmm,
someone, or
hmm,
you can have someone in your team where people business is something that they are good at. But end of the day, I would say, despite again, when consumerism and everything, like you said, is coming up in terms of technology, when it's easy to get distracted by a technology device rather than speaking to someone, that value for human connection increases, and you can have a real genuine
hmm.
difference in the business world when you have that skill also. So it's a very
Hmm.
important part, I would say.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. That's quite interesting. So you told me, not me, you told that Spike to consider this as not as networking, as making friends. My response, I think, at that point in time was, I can't remember one friend I made in my 30s.
Yeah.
Right? I would need a fair amount of alcohol and fair amount of distraction to kind of force
Yeah.
myself to put myself into this situation. So for the
Yeah.
people watching, like, what is a simple guide to making friends in your 30s?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that question because I'm not 30 yet.
Oh, sorry
Uh,
about that. Okay, let's say 25 plus.
yeah. Yeah. But I think like why I said like approach networking as like making friends is what do you call, for example, like how did you make friends when you're early, like when you're in your first grade, when you're in your like second grade? How you make friends is by simply ask, mostly I would say simply asking for help first thing, right? Hey, like, hey, aga pencil hey, do you have a pen, do you have a pencil, hey, I didn't bring
Mm,
my eraser. That is when you ask for something like a small thing like that with the person that is sitting next to you, and that helps then,
mm,
that breaks the ice, and then you eventually say, then have a conversation and talk. So that is, I would say,
mm,
the same concept I said when you're grown up and when you're networking. Like to break that ice, that
mm,
is again like the ask for help, ask for advice, is that is the same concept that I say that you need to bring in order to do that.
mm,
Because now in that context they have something to offer, and now when they are grown up, when
mm,
they are like like experienced, what they can now offer is kind of advice and guidance and all that. So that is why I take advice first approach most of the time, to kind of network with, because that is how the true human nature, like how we break ice and have that initial conversation.
mm,
And then if you want to be friends with someone, what do you do? Like you meet them more often, you try to like make effort to kind of be in the same room with them as more often, you go and talk to them with more often, you try to like net connect with them on other platforms to kind of stay in touch more often. So that same thing that you do when you are like want to kind of continue a friendship, you could do in this sense, like go to an event, you find someone you want to like network with, you ask for advice and break that ice and get them to remember you. And then you find like okay, you go to a more events where they are part of, so they see you more often, and then they get to remember you
mm,
more often. And then what you call like you connect with them on LinkedIn so that they can see what you are doing, you can see what they are doing, so that you create more touch points when you're even building a friendship, right? That is the same thing that you would do on
mm,
networking as well. You create more touch points so that they get to remember you, and they feel more kind of related. um, that is simply what I do. It's not that you are networking to make a friend, is not what I'm saying. It's the same concept of how you
mm,
make a friend. That framework can be used in just the business context. And it's just a mindset game. Like, for an example, like what I've always say is that don't think networking as this, massive, okay, very businessy thing. Just use the same thing
mm,
as how you would deal with a friend, how you would make a new friend. Just use the same thing so that it just tricks your mind to think that it's something easy. That's it.
mm. Right. And I think it is also important to now discuss about cringe, because that first few times, you are going to anticipate some cringe, and most probably it's going to be cringe, because I can relate back to the first time I started posting on LinkedIn, and it was not a very nice
Yeah.
feeling, because I didn't want to share
Yeah.
my thoughts with the entire world. I didn't know what people would say and how people would feel about what I say. And
Yeah.
what I did was, I just set my mind to hit publish as many times as possible, no matter what the response is. And you come to the stark realization that no one gives a shit if you say the wrong thing. And
Exactly.
if you say the right thing, there's a upside to it where people agree. But when you say the wrong thing, maybe there are like one or two angry people who get disgruntled by it, and that's fine. You learn through those interactions as well, in my experience, right? And if you do something really well, and as people say, if you go viral, you will anyway find angry people. They are saying shit because they want to say shit, and these people are usually the dumbest people alive. And most of us, including myself, we live life scaring the dumbest person in the room. What will they say, right? So maybe relating
Exactly.
back to my LinkedIn experience, those are the things that I have noticed. How do you have like
Mm.
any specific advice when it comes to navigating this or anticipating this cringe effect?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think if you try to like, I mean, perfect things always it's not going to work. Like you correctly said, the more times that you hit the publish button, that is very important with volume.
Mm,
I think it's a feeling that you wouldn't get rid of most of the time. Like, do you like? I think like I
mm,
started posting about like my journey back in the day when I didn't have any clients or whatever, just putting it out there. I felt it, but then I overcame it. But now, these days,
mm,
like I'm on a like a very much of a like a fitness oriented journey where I'm talking about how I lost about 10-15 kilos in like few months and talking about that.
mm,
Now even I feel cringe when I do that. So it's like first of all it's okay to feel, that is the first thing. You are gonna feel it, that's fine. But like you correctly said, despite that, taking action is the most important part, because once you just take action, you understand that it's not bad as you thought it's going to be. No
mm,
one's going to kind of, like you correctly said, remember that piece of content sometimes that you posted, because that is just one of the hundreds of two hundreds of content that someone would see in a day. So be happy if they even remember you. And if you think that your
mm,
content is very cringe, if that cringe helps them remember you, that's actually a good thing in this industry, because attention is the new currency, right? So if that cringe helps them to remember you, then you already won.
yeah,
Actually, you didn't lose. So I would say
definitely,
that
definitely.
be different. So be cringe is, I would say, the actual way to survive. Like for an example, these days, there's people like Amant, Dinel, who is viral
Mm,
on like TikTok and all those platforms. They did the most cringiest shit, and they didn't care about what everyone thought. And they're printing cash. They're like everywhere. Like, Amanda started his own business. He started his own coffee brand in just a couple of years, just by,
mm.
cringe TikTok. Dinel is the same. He's everywhere now. He's just a young kid out of school. I would say cringe is better.
Yeah, and if you can look back at your work and you feel cringy about it, that means you've grown. That's
100%.
that's a leading indicator that you know you have come a long way since your last post. I look back at posts from 3 months ago and I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? And that's actually good. That's a good feeling because that means I have evolved as a person.
True.
And I would never kind of have that gauge had I not posted 3 months ago,
Exactly.
right? So I think you're very right in saying cringe is epic. Cringe is the new cool.
Exactly. That's a good tagline.
All right. So before I let you go, one final question, and I hope to ask this
Yeah.
from everyone who kind of joins with discussions with me.
Hmm.
I'm still not confident enough to say that this is a podcast. This is a video chat, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the question: what are your genuine, brutal, unfiltered thoughts about marketing, specific to your industry, specific to what you do?
Hmm.
Based off of the things that you see in the local scene,
Hmm.
um, I'm happy for you to tell me that marketing is something that doesn't even cross your mind.
Hmm.
Because my kind of motivation here is to understand what people outside of marketing think of
Hmm.
marketing.
Yeah.
We tend to kind of be stuck in this bubble as marketers. We only
Yeah.
see the world as marketers, and it's an
Yeah.
echo chamber I want to get out of.
Yeah. I'll simply put like what marketing has been for me, that I have learned, noticed, experience is that marketing is the medium for someone to get inspired to take action on something, the desired
Mm-hmm.
action. So, if a brand, for them, it can be purchasing something, it can be like anything, getting them to remember, it can be anything. But if if the marketing works, that means you have inspired someone to take action. That is what I from my what I think marketing is for. So whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, like for an example, now I run a kind of, let's say, the AI technology, AI recruitment product. For me, I'm taking a fully organic approach first for my product. I'm not taking any paid marketing approach. For them, I just look at, okay, how can I inspire my target audience to take action? What would inspire them to take action is what my focus is on. It can be about I
Mm-hmm.
make them a little scared about what's coming in the future in terms of recruitment and AI so that they take action. Or else it can be something about I tell them, hey, you are going to be one of the first people in the world to adopt AI in recruitment space. So they are one of the early adapters. I play into that segment to inspire them to take action.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I try to understand what would inspire them to take action, and then like essentially the marketing is curated around it. Um,
Okay.
I'm not a marketer, but that is what I think that
Mm.
from my
Uh,
perspective.
and and from what you said, I understand that you might be doing your marketing in house.
For our product, yes, like yes, it's done just purely with
Okay.
few people there.
Okay. So let me ask the same question, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Um, if you decide tomorrow that you are going to outsource the work, get a
Mhm.
marketing partner on board,
Yeah.
what would be your biggest concerns to kind of handing it over to a Sri Lankan, let's say, marketing strategy firm or advertising firm?
Okay. Um, let's put Sri Lanka out of the context, but let's say just anyone. For me, it's
Hmm.
like the buy-in in the sense how much of skin in the game. Like again, we are startups, right? In the startup space, in the product space,
Hmm.
how much skin in the game that they would have towards this product, towards like
Hmm.
grabbing opportunities for this product is something that I'm genuinely that I think of like because for us like 24/7 we think about how to like work ensure that we have the best ROI, best outcome for this tool, for
Hmm.
this product that we are building. Can we have the same level of skin in the game is like one of the key first things that I want to kind of like that I think about.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I was saying, that genuine buying from the partner that we are coming that we get on board is one of the main important factors for me, and I think that is like for any organization. I think that is where the
Hmm.
first step would be for them. How much of a genuine interest the partner that we bring on board have about the business, and for me, it's not a client, service provider relationship. It's more of like a partnership that we look into to kind of grow the business together. So that is like
Hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of different factors, but that is the core factor that would affect me to kind of, look into, okay, who is the partner that I want to work with. And when you bring in the keyword
Hmm.
Sri Lankan into the context, now the concern or one of the concerns that I can bring in again from a
Hmm.
global perspective, now also since I'm selling globally, I feel that the same way, which is, are we, again, you can have a different perspective on this because you are in the industry. But do okay, does our marketers have the right exposure towards the scale that globally people are dealing with? Example, like for an example, like I see the level of budgets the global organizations and marketers have to make mistakes and try crazy different ideas that they have is massive, right? So with that, the level of experience, the level of education around marketing that they are able to bring in is insane. Like when people do like marketing kind of conferences here,
Mm.
I think they are bringing down a lot of different kind of speakers globally who have done few different marketing campaigns globally. When they come and do speeches about the executions that they have done, it's insane. Like for here, I have not seen something that even come close to something like that. So with that level of like not being exposed to those kind of executions, level of sophisticated executions, can our kind of teams based here does not have like big budgets to make mistakes and learn these kind of crazy things that we can do, use technology effectively in the marketing process, like what is the how can we compete against this kind of global giants
Mm.
who have these kind of let's say advantages. If someone asks me the same question from a technology perspective, I know that is wrong. So probably you might thinking what I'm thinking is wrong, like from a marketing sense. But from just purely a client perspective, those are the things that I would look into when it comes to selecting the marketing partner.
Mm. No, definitely, definitely. I've experienced what you just said. Earlier this year, I tried to scale operations into the UK, have a similar setup here, sorry, similar setup there, uh, but that kind of collapsed on its own um, because two things, right? One is the lack of resources. We are used to small budgets. So marketing here, when I say marketing, most people automatically think posting stuff up on social media, which is quite important for a business. I think it's hygiene at this point, but is a part of what I would define as marketing, right? So it's a tiny fraction of the marketing ecosystem that can thrive here with the resources that we have. Like you said, when you scale it up to budgets of 5 6 figures a month, most of the talent here, no matter how good they are, because they haven't had that room to
Exactly.
how I say, fuck around and find out, they kind of try to stick to their ways, and that collapses on their heads. That is one. And two, the experimentation culture. From a very small age, we are told not to experiment. And we have been given the guardrails to avoid failure at whatever
Yeah.
cost. Right? Failure is such a bad thing in our culture that we don't even go close to, failing. We just stay in the safety of our house, doing what we know to be true,
Yeah.
and just call it quits. So we are at a disadvantage two times over because of those two things. So I would say you're not wrong. You're, I think, 100% right. And especially, I've had some experience working with startups. Through Cranial, it's a different operation altogether, and we are quite aligned with what startups want, and it's mostly a project-based kind of engagement that we do. But with the advertising part of things, what Fudge does, my other company, we have tried working with startups and we have failed. And I say this because that thing you said, when you're a startup, you need someone to have skin in the game, and you want someone to be working almost as hard as you do to kind of get those gains initially. And I don't think the
Yeah.
agency structure here can support that. And even if you do find an agency that does, they might, be asking an amount of money
Yeah.
to service that account that is well over your budget, right? So very true, very true. That's quite interesting, and that's something that I have experienced. So taking the conversation back to networking and having these interpersonal relationships with people who might be interested in what you do. See if I got this right. So first, do your due diligence. Figure out that elevator pitch, things that will grab attention and leave some sort of memory in their heads about what you do, who you are. Then just grow a pair, walk over the lobby or hall or wherever and have that conversation. Have a few questions prepared to ask these people based on your research, and don't worry about that feeling of cringe. When you're feeling cringe, it's usually happening for a good reason. Did
Very
I
good.
sum it up
No, I think
correctly,
that
or did
sums
I
up the
miss
most
crucial pieces
important
out?
parts very well. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful,
Definitely.
Nevan.
It's a
Thank you so much for
pleasure
your
being
time. And we will continue this conversation
definitely
once you're
100%. I
back
really
from
enjoyed the
Malaysia,
chat as
hopefully.
well. Like with the questions that you asked, it helped me kind of bring up different parts and different insights that I usually don't share with many. Because, like you said, like I also said, like it's very rarely people ask the right questions. So when people ask the right questions, there's so many beautiful conversations that can happen.
Mm,
So that is why we also love podcasts, because in podcasts, like I don't want to call this podcast, but this structure of like media works because people likes questions and stories, and that
mm.
happens. That is very genuine to human nature. That is why we should kind of approach it that way. So yeah, it's a pleasure being here. And
Yep.
here's man, looking forward to seeing the output as well. Yes.
Cheers, buddy.
Amazing.
Good
Thanks.
luck. Good
Cheers.
luck.